Good morning. I'd like to call this work session of the Southampton Town Board to order on the 8th day of April, 2021. Please rise and join me for the pledge of I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag of the United States of America
and
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Schneiderman,
Here.
Councilwoman Lofstad,
Here.
Councilman Martell,
Here.
Councilman Bouvier, Councilman Scavone.
Present.
All right, so we're all here. I think we're gonna start this morning. Well, we got Ryan here. And then I know Sunday you want us to get the job agenda done. So
Yes, please.
let's do COVID first. If we can bring Ryan on, then we'll do the draft agenda, and we'll try to do the COVID piece quick. So thank you, Ryan, for coming on.
No problem, Supervisor. I can keep it quick.
All right.
The age change is the biggest thing to the to what's going on with COVID right now. As of this past Tuesday, just a couple of days ago, the age decreased. The COVID vaccine, if they're interested.
So I'm sorry, I lost you for a
That
second.
doesn't mean that you're going to be able to go on and get an appointment tomorrow necessarily, but all people 16 and over are eligible to go on and try to secure an appointment. And I would suggest that you continue to check back at the different available locations quite frequently. There are offerings that are occurring locally, obviously at the college that is still open. And I believe today or tomorrow, actually, I just got a text from the state. Tomorrow we transition to second doses at the college as well. So there will be 585 first doses per day going on and 585 second dose individuals coming into the college site. So that's great news that we are already at day 21 as of today for the first 150 people that went to the college under the soft opening that first Thursday that it was kind of open, and fledged for a second dose for 585 people. Keep that in mind for anybody traveling locally, that we will see a little bit more volume around Tuckahoe Road with, double the number of people going to the vaccine site. But we believe that we have that traffic pattern under control, when you're going to see your regular, trade parade traffic in the morning and things like that. But we think we've got the vaccine site traffic under control. Meeting House Lane has also been offering some small vaccine distribution opportunities. Southampton, in fact, tomorrow they're doing 1,000-person vaccine site at Hampton Bay Schools. Thank you to Hampton Bays Middle School, the staff there, Lars Clemenson, superintendent of schools, and the hospital for setting that up. They did about 600 vaccines at Hampton Bays Middle School earlier this week. So all in all, this week we'll have gotten another 1,600 or so people taken care of with vaccines, thanks to the offerings at the at Hampton Bays Schools. And the guidance has just come out with some more detail on arts and entertainment spaces. And when I say it just came out, I haven't even had a chance to go through the entire thing yet. But as of April 2nd, arts and entertainment venues are allowed to reopen at very reduced capacities. We've been waiting for the detailed guidance for those institutions that they will need to follow, and it has finally come out. So we'll be reviewing that and taking a look at what's necessary for them to be able to put on performances and arts displays and things of that nature. And we've been in regular communication with those groups as well.
All right.
I think that's about all I got on.
Ryan, in terms of state protocol, are people who are fully vaccinated, plus 2 weeks, can hang out with other people who are fully vaccinated without their masks on? Is that how it works now?
So yes, generally speaking, that seems to be the CDC's in particular guidance, I believe, on the topic, as well as the state has been subscribing to, CDC guidance, where, fully vaccinated individuals can mix with other vaccinated individuals. Again, that's, either the J&J one shot or the 2 doses of any of the others, and then 2 weeks beyond to be considered fully vaccinated without necessarily having to have masks on. Obviously, if you're capable of wearing a mask, or if there are any people around that haven't been vaccinated or aren't fully vaccinated, masks are still encouraged. The vaccine and being fully vaccinated, there's still some degrees of uncertainty as to whether or not you can potentially, carry the virus a little bit. Remember, fully vaccinated at COVID and Moderna levels is like 95%. So there's still a level there where, 5 or so percent, you're not immune. And then just like I think, a typical response to a flu vaccine, which many of us are familiar with, sometimes people get the flu vaccine and then they still get the flu. It doesn't necessarily work on every single person. Each person's makeup is a little bit different, and vaccines do and don't work to different degrees with different people. So if you can tolerate a mask, if the setting allows for you to wear one comfortably, it's not a bad idea to continue to wear a mask, even if you're with other fully vaccinated people and you can do so.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Ryan? In terms of town board, I mean, I'm trying to figure out when we could start meeting in person again. Though I have to say these Zoom meetings are productive, and I think for a lot of our other boards, like planning board, where they have a lot of 7 members, and certainly for things like CACs, and the Zoom format is probably very convenient, particularly if a board has members from like West Hampton to Sagaponack, to be able to, an advisory board. I sort of would like them to be able to continue to meet by Zoom, but I'm trying to figure out what's the earliest we can get the town board back in the same room. And I'm thinking May, maybe the first week of first meeting in May, or maybe mid-May. Ryan, what's your thoughts on that?
I think that's a good target for us. I think you're 100% right. The accessibility of Zoom, especially for people with a nice spread in the geography of where they're located, it can be really convenient for them. And I think there's a lot of folks out there that probably still want to embrace that technology that we've really learned how to use well during the pandemic. But I think we can start to examine. I think May is a good target for us to look at, and we're looking at the guidance right now. This was a question that we had internally yesterday in anticipation of this discussion coming up a little bit. And we're checking on some of the guidance to see where exactly we're at with that. And I think you have a good target date with May. And I will add on to that we are also targeting May with senior services to start to, at a very low level, bring back some of our congregate dining experiences at socially distant and safe levels for our seniors, with them. Great effort between the vaccine sites at the Greek church and the efforts of Liz Dwyer and her staff at Senior Services to get a lot of our seniors vaccinated. And we know that socialization and getting out and doing things with others is so key to their psychological well-being, as with every person. And so we want to start to be able to present those types of opportunities to the people again. So in a very reduced capacity and controlled way, we're looking in celebration of Older Americans Month of hopefully bringing some of that back in May at a low level.
Okay, and we do have the workforce now at 100%. We started that earlier this month. I'm just thinking that this packet probably contains some notices of public hearings for May, and it probably has the Zoom language in them. So when we get there, I think, board, we need to decide whether that first meeting in May should be in person or not, because that's going to affect those notices, or wait till the second meeting in May. Anybody have any strong thoughts about that?
Yeah, I have one's a question to Ryan. If we're open to the public, we still have a requirement in place, if I understand it correctly, that public will be required to wear a mask regardless?
That's correct. That's correct, Councilman.
All right, because we do have,
we are obviously screening people for temperature when they come in, still. And we're doing the attestation, the wellness attestation, but out of an abundance of caution, we are definitely still requiring that. And when our town staff, many of whom thankfully have been vaccinated at this point, when they move around in common spaces of the building or even within their own offices, there's still an expectation for mask wearing at this present time.
so to follow up on that, I know that there are people in family situations where they may have a family member who is particularly subject or particularly vulnerable, susceptible to protection against any kind of infection, COVID included, and that has to factor to the thinking as well. Everybody has an individual circumstance that they have to go through. From what I understand from the CDC, there's a requirement to protect that. The vaccine is, as you said, is not necessarily 100% protective, and that there is the potential that it can be carried to other individuals over a period of time, asymptomatically, and not to expose someone to the potential of an infection on that basis. So I just wanted to make that point.
Ryan, I have a question and then a comment. And does the vaccine card, right, once you're fully vaccinated plus 2 weeks, does that take the place of testing, proof of testing for our purposes as well as social events?
For our purposes, you mean like town board meeting purposes?
Yeah,
and
town board
attendees?
meetings in our congregate settings.
Well, so for our purposes, people coming into town hall, town board meetings, even civic meetings, there's no guidance that requires testing for people to be able to go to that meeting now,
Right.
that I'm aware of. So the vaccination, card or proof of full vaccination wouldn't really be in lieu of any existing requirement for testing that's otherwise out there. The vaccination, proof of full vaccination, in many of the other guidance documents that are out there from the state, for whether it's arts and entertainments, whether it's for mass gatherings of sorts, yes, proof of vaccination can be utilized in lieu of testing requirement for a lot of those things. So if there's any instances where we would want someone to prove that they have tested negative for COVID, we would be able to, accept proof of full vaccination in lieu of that testing requirement. But as of right now, for like our meetings or things like that, I'm not aware of any standing requirement that would force someone to produce either a negative test or proof of vaccination.
Okay, I guess that would be our policy that we would put on. I'd like to say to the board that, I believe that in as much as the Zoom meetings have been good and we were able to keep government open and functioning, I certainly would like to go back to in-person meetings. I think this format is prohibitive for a segment of our population. In other words, for whatever reason, they can't figure this out, or the links and whatever. I think for the first 6 months back, we should have some kind of hybrid. But Charles, you could work on that one, I suppose.
Zoom in addition to?
If somebody wanted to address the board in person, perhaps they could zoom in on one of our screens and we could broadcast it as part of the meeting. It's an idea.
If there's any comment that I would make, I would only say that I have so many more people on Zoom watching the town board,
right,
and all the boards, more than they can fit in that room. Just to voice my opinion.
Yeah, others have said
Totally
that too. I mean, we have a comment in the chat that from Lynn Arthur that she says, generally speaking, attendance at advisory meetings and CAC meetings I have been involved with, Sustainability Committee, North Sea CAC, have been better with Zoom, that there's more people. And it does make sense in a way that you can do it from home. It's easier. It's easier to get into. So I have some mixed feelings about it. And Jim, I don't even know if the governor's open meetings law waiver is only good right now to the end of April, I believe. He'd have to extend it. And you're muted, which is not uncommon at these Zoom meetings.
I'm sure it'll be extended. I can check exactly what the date is, but I would be certain that it'll be extended.
So why don't we do this? We have the resolution.
It's currently extended to April 25th.
Right.
And I'm sure it'll be extended another 3 months at least.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. So I think we could have
But Ryan, I thought actually in the adopted budget, there was legislation that from the legislature and approved by the governor that was extending it permanently, making it a permanent part of the law, that it was a local option. That's the current bill that was just budget was adopted last night. Yeah.
I don't know. I am not sure what's in there
Why-
yet. You could.
why
right.
aren't you
Right.
You haven't read that, Ryan? Come on.
So yeah, sorry. I know it's hot off the press, but
I read it. Come on, I was up all night.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we allow that, since the notices are probably for the first meeting in May, to allow that one on Zoom, but let's shoot for the second meeting of May, trying to come back into the town board meeting. I also do like Tommy John's suggestion that we try to work out the technology so that during a public portion at least, if not public hearings as well, somebody could come in through their computer and appear on a screen and speak their mind. Just a thought, if we can figure out the technology.
I just would like to kind of support what John said. I'm going through something similar where I have somebody in my family who hasn't been able to get a COVID shot due to medical issues. I'm only on my first one, so I got a couple weeks to go, probably almost a month before I'll be good to go. So just if you could keep that in mind as well.
All right. Is there anyone on the town board or, on this Zoom call besides Julie who hasn't had both vaccines? Tommy John and Julie. All right.
I'll be getting it this week. So
this week. All right. And
Sunday.
Julie, when's your second?
In 3 weeks, I just got my first on Friday, last
Okay.
Friday. So
All
3
right.
weeks from
3
my,
plus 2 weeks. So yeah, by mid-May you should be okay.
right. But my husband has not had his yet. So,
All right. Well,
and I don't know when he can get his.
let's get him vaccinated. But in terms of us being able to gather together, I mean, I'm going to suggest even for the meeting in May that we do wear masks so that the public doesn't feel any intimidation coming into the meeting room. But we can discuss that too as it gets closer. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Brian. So let's move on. I know Sunday you want us to get through the draft meeting agenda. Who's here? And then Lynn is here for the solar topic.
Yeah.
Lynn, do you have the time? Can you give us another 15 minutes here? All right. Thank you. We appreciate that. All right. Let me pull up the draft agenda. All right, I'm not seeing it. Hold on. If somebody has it in front of them, maybe.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for the draft agenda. Give me 1 second here. Okay, I got it.
Got it here if you want.
All right, I have it too. Okay, so this is for the April 13th meeting. It is a meeting at 1 o'clock and it'll be via Zoom. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4. How many public hearings? 9 public hearings. The first one is considering a grant of open space for subdivision map of Edge of Woods Parkside in North Sea. Second one is the non-conforming use shift from the zoning board to the town board. The third one is a hearing to consider a local law enacting Southampton Town Code Chapter 160, mining and land reclamation. That is the water quality monitoring. The fourth one is to consider enacting Town Code Chapter 262, entitled Registration of Foreclosed Mortgage Properties. We've discussed this in the past. I would create that registry. Number 5 is a public hearing to consider one-year agricultural use agreements for 2021 and 2022. The 6th considers Town Code 330-5, amending Town Code 330-5 definitions of Chapter 330 zoning to add definition of for non-aviation and distribution industry. Public hearing 7, public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 330 zoning, Section 183, site plan elements to address rainstorm retention and also require recycling containers on site plans within the town. The 8th is considers amending Southampton Town Code 33210, miscellaneous provisions of Article 22, signs to require removal of obsolete signs and their supporting structures 14 days after use or activity they identify has ceased. And the last one, public hearing to consider amending Town Code Chapter 323 to extend the Shinnecock Hills moratorium for 3 months. Any questions on any of the public hearings? Hearing none, we'll go to resolutions. And Tommy John, you've got the first.
Town Board Resolution 330 of 2021, resolution of adoption enacting Town Code Chapter 160, mining and/or land reclamation, requiring those operating mine sites within the town of Southampton to monitor the groundwater impact at such sites.
Right, 36-329 authorizes additional LED light upgrades at the police department. This will take care of their exterior fixtures, LED fixtures. Well, there'll be LED fixtures. 36138 authorized controller to pay Moody's investment Corp as it relates to the Southampton Town credit rating for its public improvement serial bonds.
Town Board Resolution ID 36344 is authorized conducting stop date events using Town of South Hope contract with MXI Environmental Services LLC.
Resolution ID 36327, authorized contract with Nursing Sisters Home Care, DBA Catholic Home Care, to provide expanded in-home services for the elderly program, EISEP, to Town of Southampton residents.
36212, authorized purchase of floor coverings from New York State contract with Milburn Sales Company, Inc. 36215, authorized removal of toxic and hazardous materials at various locations.
Town Board Resolution ID 36306, authorized renovation at Ludlam Park using Suffolk County contracts.
324, authorization for the supervisor to execute a contract with Suffolk County Office for the Aging, Title IIIE, Adult Daycare. Resolution ID 36325, authorizes supervisor to execute a contract with Suffolk County Office for the Aging for the Residential Repair Program. ID 36326, authorizes supervisor to execute a contract with Suffolk County Office for the Aging for expanded in-home services for the elderly.
Town Board Resolution 36328, authorized supervisor to renew the purchase of network hardware and software maintenance from CCSI.
Town Board Resolution 36338, authorize the supervisor to sign a contract extensions for highway sign posts and appenditures for Osborne Associates Incorporated and American Traffic Safety Materials, Inc. Town Board Resolution 36334, authorize the purchase of maintenance renewal of Great Plains software with Interdyne, AKA, now known as AKA Enterprise Solutions.
ID number 36333, authorize the supervisor to sign amendment with Forte for processing for fees for various programs.
36289, authorize the supervisor to enter into agreement with LK McLean Associates PC in connection with the traffic review services of the traffic analysis of the site plan application of Hampton Business District Phase 5, 245 Rogers Way.
Town Board Resolution 36331, authorize the supervisor to execute a consulting contract with H2M Architect, Engineers, Land Surveying, 8th Al for rehabilitation of the Bellows Pond Road elevated storage tank. Town Board Resolution 36330, authorize the supervisor to execute a consulting contract with H2M Architects, Engineers, Land Surveying, 8th Al for the wellhead treatment for iron and manganese removal at Plant 4 at the Hampton Bays Water District. Town Board Resolution 36340, authorize the supervisor to sign a 2021 consulting contract with H2M Architects, Engineers, Land Surveying, 8th Al to design for a subaqueous water pipe crossing at Ponquag Bridge and Shinnecock Canal.
36307, authorize the supervisor to execute a contract extension with Long Island East and Dynamic Industries for printing services in various town departments.
ID 36349, authorize the supervisor to execute a new sole source contract with Mariners Cove Marine to supply the town with easy dock parts as the Eastern Long Island authorized reseller. ID 36303, authorize the supervisor to sign a 2021 East Quogue Hamlet Services Challenge Grant.
Town Board Resolutions 36332, authorize the supervisor to sign a change order / work authorization for Forte.
Town Board Resolution ID 3646, to authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with PW Grosser for engineering services related to elevation of existing leachate pump stations and appurances.
36281, authorize the supervisor to sign a new agreement with Briscoe Protective, formerly known as Bell Ringer, for 116 Hampton Road. Hampton Road. I think there's an extra road in there, Town Hall. Ms. Sunday, you want to just fix that title?
Yes, certainly.
Town Board Resolution 36335, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, to authorize the supervisor to sign an agreement with Box Incorporated for Business Plus account licenses.
36336, authorize the supervisor to sign contract with Cunningham Duct Cleaning for kitchen exhaust cleaning.
Town Board Resolution ID 36221, award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Coastal Commercial Properties Management Incorporated for landscaping services at various town locations.
Town Board Resolution 36337, award and authorize supervisor to sign a contract with Dom's Lawn Makers Incorporated for tree and stump removal. Town Board Resolution 36339, award and authorize supervisor to sign a contract with South Fork Asphalt and Rosemar Contracting for drainage construction east and west of the canal. Town Board Resolution 36260, award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract for Bulkhead Road H Commercial Docking Area, Hampton Bays, New York, with South Shore Docks Incorporated. Town Board Resolution 36261, award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract for Rebuild Pier at South Bay Avenue, Eastport, New York, with Brant Marine Incorporated.
Town Board Resolution 36350, declare item surplus and authorize disposal.
36291, recall and amend Town Board Resolution 21-253 with Vigilance Solutions for the town police department. 36241, resolution authorizing the purchase of one 2021 Ford F-150 Super Cab XL.
Town Board Resolution ID 36258 is a 2021 notice to bidders for Hampton Bays Transfer Station Booth Replacement.
Town Board Resolution 36342, the 2021 notice to bidders for food concession at Diana Beach.
Town Board Resolution ID 36341. I think Sunday, this is the same issue that we talked about. You want me to make this amendment on the floor to remove that paragraph under notice to proposers? I don't have
Yes, yes, please. The take further notice paragraph will be stricken from the next three resolutions. Once again, the language does not apply to RFPs. It is for bid openings. So that information will be removed, and there's usually an additional remainder of a sentence in the please note paragraph. While my office does not post the results of our RFPs online on our Procureware site, we do post the names of the companies and or individuals who actually bid on or put in proposals for the RFPs for transparency purposes, so people know who actually submitted. So in the next three resolutions, we're going to add the same language back in that is supposed to be there.
Okay, thank you. So this is Town Board Resolution ID 36341, 2021 request for proposals for engineering and design services for the West Hampton Community Center.
Town Board Resolution 36345. This is a 2021 request for proposals for architectural engineering services for Tupper Boathouse.
Yes, and the same goes, Councilman Scavone, for this. The take further notice paragraph will be removed, and in the please note at the end, it will say, and results of submissions can be viewed online at the southampton.procureware.com link, so that people can access, once again, the names of those that have submitted proposals.
Okay, understood.
Town Board Resolution ID 36343 is a 2021 request for proposals for North Sea Landfill Community Solar Development, and this will also be a subject on the work session to follow.
Yes, and that's
With the
same amendments.
36290 amends the 2021 adopted budget for Flanders Ambulance. 36042 amends the 2021 adopted budget for Police Department for clothing allowance. 36311 amends 2021 adopted budget for Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. 36323 amends 21 adopted budget for Trustees. 36318 amends 21 to 25 capital budget for beach improvements. 36280 amends 21 to 25 capital budget for Ludlam Avenue Park. 36296 authorized to allocate the 2020 mortgage tax receipts to the Police Department and School Bus Safety Program revenue allocation. That Len is here for questions on this one, I think. Is Len still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
So, so this had to do with the fund balance and the police fund dipping a little below our policy level.
Yeah, it's not a standard resolution, Supervisor. It's something that we normally don't wish to do, but unfortunately, the results of last year kind of unpredictable, and we had expenses in the police department that were unanticipated, a bunch of retirements. So the fund balance, as a result, fell below our minimum requirement. And in an effort not to be in violation of the policy, we would need to do this resolution. And normally it really wouldn't matter, but it would wind up being a comment on our audit report from our auditors. And I haven't had a comment in the past bunch of years, and I wouldn't want a comment to come up on my watch. So this would be something that we would want to do to make sure that we have a clean audit opinion.
So you're basically advancing some money, right, from a different account, and then when the school bus camera money comes in, it'll replace the money that was advanced, right?
Yes, we're yes.
we did have a lot of COVID expenses too with overtime in the police department, but we're also getting quite a bit of federal money now. So these surpluses will be quite healthy when we've reimbursed ourselves for COVID.
Yeah, I'll, at a future date, I think I'll come and I'll present to the board an analysis of the additional money that we're going to be getting. It actually is more substantial than we even first thought. So I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Right. So our general policies, what our reserves, a certain percentage of the fund, right? The operating fund. So what is it? 15% or 17%, 30%? What?
Yeah, it's different. It's different depending on the fund. The general fund is at 17, and the other funds, I believe, are at 10. I mean, I'd have to check exactly, but this fell, a couple $100,000 below that. So, that's why. We had some high-ranking officers in the police department retire last year, too. So they all had pretty large payouts. That also contributed to the reduction in the fund balance.
Right.
This policy is our policy, right, Lynn? And we're just keeping, sound.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. We are much more restrictive than anything. There is no policy that you have to have you just have to have a balanced budget.
Well, yeah, there's no, the town has adopted a policy, so we could do a resolution to waive the policy. But the reason why we wouldn't want to do that is because the credit rating agencies like to see these reserve levels at certain minimums. So it makes sense, even if we didn't have the actual town policy to do it this way. So helps keep.
We like to have the reserves for a pandemic or, in other emergencies.
We like that AAA bond rating. It helps us borrow at lower costs. So, all right. So any other questions on that resolution? All right, I'll move on to the next one. 36287 accepts resignation of Jason Hahn from the Zoning Board of Appeals. 36288 appoints Susan Haberman to fill that vacancy, the unexpired term. 36310 recalls and amends Town Board Resolution 326 of 2021. That is removing Craig Catalanoto from the West Hampton CAC. He's now on a planning board. 363.
Well, just to clarify, he's resigning as a result of his appointment to the planning board.
Right. Exactly. So we're just removing his name from the list because he's resigned. 36316, resolution adopting and deleting Town Code 330-167B3 in connection with the Zoning Board of Appeals authority to approve the change in the non-conforming use and enacting Town Code 330-185-1 to have this review conducted by the town board. So that's assuming we close the hearing and we're inclined to approve. Tommy John, you've got the next one.
36286, resolution of adoption enacting Town Code 160, mining and/or land reclamation, requiring those operating mine sites within the town of Southampton to monitor the groundwater impacts at such sites.
Julie, you're muted.
Thank you. Town Board Resolution ID 36255, 2021 International Dark Sky Week.
So what is that? We're just designating the period April 5th to April 12th as International Dark Sky Week.
Yes, if you remember, I had mentioned it at last work session because that was the actual Dark Sky Week. And by the time we do adopt this resolution, it will be over, but we can do a dark sky, informal dark sky month. But I did just want to let everybody know that it is International Dark Sky Week.
Are we going to do anything to commemorate it?
Everybody can turn out their lights to go out and see the stars. I think I mentioned that last week.
All right.
But that's why we're doing the resolution, just to make it official.
All right. 36314 authorizes Community Preservation Fund tax refund pursuant to first-time home buyers exemption for Joseph and Jessica Corrado. 36312 authorized Community Preservation Fund tax refund pursuant to first-time home buyers exemption for Dawn and Burkowski. 36313 authorized Community Preservation Fund tax refund pursuant to first-time home buyers exemption for Tomislav and Anna Rajic. 36297 elects to consider NRP Group's change of zone petition entitled The Preserve at South Country Road, was changed from CR 40 to multi-family plan residential district MFPRD on a 17-acre parcel in order to facilitate development of 104 units, 6 units per acre of affordable rental housing in the hamlet of Huayan. 36319 recalls and amends Town Board Resolution number 154, 2021 as it relates to sanitary flow credits for the subdivision map of Hampton, Quanquag, Hampton Bays. 36317 recalls and amends Town Board Resolution number 206 of 2021 as it relates to sanitary flow credits for the subdivision map of Woods at Hampton Bays and Hampton Bays.
Town Board Resolution 36309, a resolution authorizing the award of additional LoSAP points due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This is length of service awards program, and the state of New York has allowed the local municipality to award LoSAP points to those members who volunteer. In this case, it's our 4 ambulance districts, so that folks who could not serve during the pandemic still got LoSAP points, and they did not necessarily suffer because of the pandemic in that regard.
All right, 36219 accepts resignation of a legislative aide in the trustee's office. 36243 accepts resignation of a public safety dispatcher 1 in Southampton Town Police. 36103 accepts retirement of David Van Scoy Jr., maintenance mechanic 4 in Highway. 36252 accepts resignation of Nicholas Fisher, technical support representative in information technology. 36253 accepts retirement of Thomas Neely, Assistant Town Director of Public Transportation and Traffic Safety and Municipal Works. 36233 accepts retirement of Lauren Sullivan, Senior Data Entry Operator in Southampton Town Police Department. 36248 accepts retirement of Detective Robert Brown, Southampton Town Police Department. 36254 accepts, wow, appoints Julie Fitzgerald to administrative assistant position in housing and community development. I didn't know that was happening. That's good. Julie's worked here in the past. 36152 reassigns Tatiana Tusi to Human Resources. 36321 rescinds Resolution 2021-337 appointing Building Plans Examiner. 36275 excuse me, ratifies the MOA with CSEA to authorize supervisor to execute contract. Rick, you're next.
Town Board Resolution 36322, notice of public hearing to consider authorizing enforcement action at 6 Long Neck Boulevard, Flanders, New York.
Town Board Resolution ID 36232 is a notice of public hearing. I think there's a Scribner's error here. Sunday should be amending Town Code Chapter 107 entitled Balloons.
Got it.
Oh, you're putting this on for public. You just pointed out the amending is spelled wrong. Okay, I see that.
Yep.
And so this is a hearing on what? It bans the sale of healing.
With some,
We already banned the intentional release.
yeah, it's included in this. It's just an amendment to that law.
Shinconic Corporation, Shinnecock Hills, that amends the CPF management and sewage plan. Include that property. 36292, notice public hearing on the acquisition of lands of SG regarding Holdings LLC, Flanders and amends the Community Preservation Project Plan and the CPF Management and Stewardship Plan to include that property. Boy, this is the estate of Peter Balkheimer, Hampton Bays, and amends the CPF Management and Stewardship is authorized acquisition of lands of Green Star Enterprises, Inc., RI Monterey Oaks Corporation, and Robert Tusi.
It says amend 2020.
What's the resolution number?
The resolution ID number is 36352. And it's transferring $8,000 from town police training to town police repair vehicles.
Lynn Arthur from our Sustainability Committee. And we may have Christine Fenton coming on. And
Actually, Jake, so just to backtrack a little bit, the board knows that the town passed enabling legislation for CCA several years ago. And when we passed that legislation to enable the CCA program in the town of Southampton, there was really only one path to CCA implementation, and that was through what's called power supply acquisition. That path still exists, and it's a path we are still pursuing, but it's not without its challenges. A number of those challenges have been overcome, largely through what I have to say is cooperation with LIPA, but also as a result of some legislative initiatives taken by Assemblyman Thiel, and some that are, one at least that has been passed by the Senate and Assembly and signed by the governor, and a second one which is working its way through the legislative process. So the goal there would be to establish a competitive market so we can pursue that path to CCA. However, in the meantime, the PSC amended the order creating CCA to include what's called Community Distributed Generation, CDG, and that was in 2018. In 2020, LIPA, our local supplier of electric energy, approved a tariff that incorporated CDG in the LIPA service area. The advantage to having it in the PSC order, us being a CCA-enabled municipality, and LIPA approving the tariff, is CDG is something that we can do today. It can happen right now. All of the requirements, legal, legislative, et cetera, are in place for us to do this today. And this resolution is an effort to look at proposals to implement a CDG program in the town of Southampton on municipal land. So I want to focus our discussion around that aspect of it. Lynn, if you can go to the other slide. And I would add Len, Janice, or Christine, and certainly Lynn, if at any point you want to add, please do. So what are people involved in a CDG project on municipal land? And what are some of the costs associated with it, the potential benefits, and the safeguards that are in place both for the town and especially for the ratepayers who might be for the town. And just to hesitate on that for a moment, the project produces energy credits that are available for the town to help reduce the costs of operating through their utility bill. And again, that's a topic that we'll explain a little bit more fully when we talk about the resident ratepayer. There are no costs to the resident ratepayer, and we hope certainly some savings. And those savings come in the form of utility bill credits, and that can be up to 10%. And if I can offer an analogy here, which may be useful. The ratepayer doesn't get any cash, and it's not even a refund. It's a credit that appears on your bill. And it's akin to the STAR program. The state legislators decided that there are certain criteria, and if you're a citizen taxpayer in New York State, property taxpayer, and you meet those criteria, you get a STAR reduction on your bill in the form of a credit. The utility bill credit pretty much works the same way, except when the time comes, it's the town that makes the decision who is qualified to get those utility credits. Not that you already have that authority. You would then have to just exercise that authority when the time comes. And the ratepayer would get a credit on his or her bill. And to use round numbers or round figures anyway, so if your bill was $100 a month, the bill would come as $100 a month on the bill from LIPA, no change in how you get your bill. There would be a 10% credit on your bill. You would pay $90. And that's how the bill credit works. There is no disruption to the ratepayer's service and no penalty to the ratepayer because, like CCA, this is an opt-out program. So you don't have to participate if you live within the town of Southampton. You can opt out of the program and you will not have any disruption in your service or any penalty to you for choosing not to participate. And you can see the safeguards on a program like this is very tightly regulated and overseen by the Public Service Commission. There are programs like this elsewhere in the state, but because LIPA only passed the CDG tariff in December, there are no Long Island CDG CCA programs at the moment. Lynn, let's go to the next slide, which replicates the previous slide, but adds some detail about revenue. That's the yellow or goldenrod colored column on the right side of your screen. The developer, in simple terms, sells the energy that they produce to LIPA, and that's where they get their revenue from. And that's sold at a market value. There are, and correct me if I'm mistaken, Lynn or Janice or Christine, that market value will fluctuate depending on how the market goes. Energy markets do fluctuate, but the town is not involved in that negotiation. There's no exchange of money between the town and the developer and LIPA in this regard. All of that transaction is established between the developer and LIPA. When it comes to the town, and these figures come from checking with other municipalities on Long Island, which have leased land, not part of a CCA program, but leased land for solar arrays to private installers. That lease payment for a project of the size we're anticipating at this location is about $175,000 annual lease payment to the town. That's a payment that it is at the town's discretion how to use those funds, but it is an annual payment for the life of the contract. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less. That amount is determined by the number of megawatts, the size of the facility. We're estimating, based on input from our CCA administrator and also from other agencies like NIPA, that it's about 8 megawatts of capacity out of this site, and that roughly equates to about $175,000. Something to add, Lynn? Were you adding something?
No.
No? Okay, I thought I saw your hand go up. In this process, the town is paid a one-time customer acquisition fee. And that fee in this particular case is roughly about $80,000. That's a one-time fee, not an annual fee. There is a constraint around that money, is that the town must use it for sustainability projects. And again, analogously, this is sort of like CPF money, the money that the town gets through the transfer tax for CPF. The legislation determines how that money can be spent. And this is the same way. This one-time income has a constraint on how it can be spent. It can be spent on sustainability projects, but that term has a very broad definition. So if we wanted to add charging stations for electric vehicles, it could be used for that. It could be used for other solar installations elsewhere in town. There are a wide range of uses that funding might be applied to. And then lastly, in terms of a benefit to the town, it's not really a revenue. The town is eligible for some of those bill credits that we talked about earlier. And the town is eligible for up to 40% of those bill credits. This project would generate about $180,000 annually in bill credits. The town could access up to 40% of that, which is about $72,000. So if you apply that to an energy bill, let's just take the transfer station as an example, you would then reduce the operating cost by reducing that energy utility cost at that particular site. Any questions at this point from the board? There be none?
Frank, I
Julie?
just have one quick one, yeah. On the residential, resident taxpayers, they can opt out at any time. Can you think of any reason why somebody would want to opt out?
Personally, no, I cannot. But sometimes people don't, it's a change. It's a much more transparent change than people might imagine. You get the same bill. It looks just like it always did. From in this case, PSE&G, and it would not reflect any difference in your transaction with it. And you pay it the same way. If you're on automatic billing, nothing changes in this regard. So I don't see why they would, but everybody has their own reasons for not wanting to change what they're comfortable with.
Absolutely. I was just wondering if there was any, really definite concrete reasons why somebody would want to, other than just they don't feel comfortable doing it.
There may be, but I can't think of any.
Okay, thanks. Me neither.
And there's mandatory outreach required by the Public Service Commission associated with this program. So we have the obligation to communicate to the recipients that they're going to get these bill credits, and we're going to obviously have a communications campaign and website. So hopefully we do a good job, and everybody's real excited about the fact that they're going to get some bill credits at no charge.
Is it possible to extend this use agreement to other municipal sites if we like the outcome?
Well, and that's the hope, Tommy John. You've hit on why we're piloting this program. It can become a template for similar projects on other municipal sites. CDG, CCA projects can also happen on non-municipal sites, but we're focusing on municipal sites. And there are sites that we could do parking lot canopies. We could do rooftops of different buildings. There are lots of options that are available here. This pilot would demonstrate how to accomplish that, and as I said, could become sort of a boilerplate or template for a future project.
Right. And I imagine somewhere later in this presentation, we'll know how many kilowatt or megawatt hours or gigawatt hours something like this can produce.
I can give you that right now. This one project is estimated to produce 8 megawatts, Tommy John.
Okay.
If we take this and replicate it somewhere else, as you're suggesting, all of the financial aspects virtually double. So if we do another 8 megawatt project on some other town parcel, the lease fee doubles. The customer acquisition one-shot fee doubles. The amount of credits available doubles in rough terms. So the more we can replicate the project, the more benefit there is to the town and to the ratepayers in the community.
Right. And the 8 megawatts, is that monthly or annual?
Well,
That's capacity. Go ahead, Lynn.
that's the size of the array. That array actually produces 125% of the 8 megawatts, and that's what all these numbers are derived from.
Okay.
So that's the capacity that array, that size array can produce. The numbers is different over time. It continuously produces that. Obviously,
Right.
there's storage issues. The sun is out, weather, there are batteries and all those sorts of things. But that's really just a capacity number.
And to add, maybe I hope further clarification. The production amount is cumulative over time.
Right.
So it has a certain capacity, and over time that the production on any given day accumulates the next day, the next day, the next day. Okay, but that's an important point. Thank you, Tommy John.
I'd also like to point out that the location of this first demonstration project, if you will, is a real win-win, because, not only is it in it's in the North Sea area that, by the way, is in the load pocket, where in the summer, as you know, we have more demand than supply. And we have these demand response events. The utility is in desperate need of additional capacity. So the fact that the town is building, which, by the way, will be the largest array on the South Fork. It'll be 5 times the size of the array that was built in East Hampton. It really demonstrates the town's commitment to assisting LIPA, in providing reliable service on the South Fork.
Well, and that's an important point. Thank you for bringing that up, Lynn, because I don't have listed here the advantages to LIPA. And that's the reason why they passed this tariff allowing for CDG, because it gives them locally generated capacities in areas like where we are, where there is a desperate need for that. And it lessens the burden on them transmitting that power from essentially fossil fuel generating plants further west of us. I also want to note here that as a footnote on this chart that you're looking at right now is the fee paid by the developer to the CCA administrator, and the rate 0.002 cents per kilowatt is a rate fixed by PSC regulation. It's not negotiable. They can't establish a different term of agreement with the developer unless they want to take less, I guess, but that's not likely the case. That's not an arbitrary number. It's established in the PSC regulation around CDG CCA. We have, I think that's the end of our slide. So, as
there
Lynn
was-
mentioned,
There were actually, Frank, there was one question that Julie had asked about, where has this been done before?
yes.
And if I may, we can distribute this article, but Kings Park, it's very common right now that other municipalities, in fact, all of them adjacent to us, are looking to do exactly what we're planning to do here, meaning they have landfills that they're looking to put solar arrays on for the same purpose. So one of our intentions is to share this information with these other municipalities so they understand that not only can they just get the lease payment, but if they did their project as a CDG under CCA, they would get these other benefits. This array in Kings Park was done under a feed-in tariff, which at the time paid a substantial amount of money per kilowatt. But in all the recent years, the feed-in tariffs that LIPA has offered, has paid in the neighborhood of 16 cents a kilowatt. And the great news about CDG is it pays at a higher rate. So not only are we, using this project in a very innovative way, but it pays the developers, the people who bring the projects, who do the projects on behalf, in this case of Southampton, it's paying out at a higher rate. It's about 10% more. So that's tremendous. That will attract hopefully a lot of interest in bidding on your project.
Thank you, Lynn. I also wanted to mention that this being the first project that we've done and the first one of its kind on Long Island, that we've worked very closely with our CCA administrator. Christine Fenton has played a very important role in looking at the specifications, looking at some of the concerns that the DEC might have with regard to a project like this on a landfill. Kara from the town attorney's office has worked closely with the CCA administrator, Jewel, both to craft the RFP and also to look at a draft of the land lease agreement so that the interests of the town are protected and any liabilities that might fall to the town are overcome and attended to. And Janice's office is working on a solar utility code, which I think the board will see in the next several weeks or so, because the solar utility code would need to be in place when we award a contract to someone and before they would begin construction. So there have been a lot of people involved in getting to the point of presenting this proposal to the board. I've had conversations with Len about the financial aspects of it, and all of those moving parts result in the resolution that you have in front of you and the RFP that we hope will be going out in the next sometime next week.
I have another question, Lynn, I guess to you on the article about the Kings Park 27 acre, and it said it was a 4 megawatt array. About how much of that of that 27 acres is used for that array, and how big is the area that we're proposing to use, and how much of that would be covered by the solar panels?
Christine is here. She may be able to add to your question in addition to what Lynn's response.
I'm going to actually throw this into Christine's lap.
Speak to the Kings Park installation, because I haven't read that article, unfortunately, I apologize. But just to give you a scope, the North Sea landfill property encompasses SYS, the Highway Department, Transfer Station operational area, in addition to the 3 closed cell landfill areas and open preserved area around the north, west, and east side of those cells. The property in total is 131.6 acres, but it includes all of those other uses on it. When we're talking about the solar array installation on top of the cells, so the flat portion of cells, not side slopes of it, we're probably in that area of 10 acres, a little bit less, being provided by the top surfaces of those closed cell landfills.
I also noticed, Christine, in that article that it said that it could power 1,000 homes. So at 4 megawatt, a 4 megawatt array, we're looking to put in a 8 megawatt array. So is it fair to say that this would power 2,000 homes? Roughly.
I would stay away from that. And the reason for it being that we ran into this with CCA when we were trying to create some metrics of anticipation of how many homes, with CCA, us versus Westchester. And it really depends on the building stock. We have a really unique, we have a lot of homes over 4,500 square foot. We have a lot of homes that are average, 1,500 square foot. So, it's kind of hard to kind of come to a conclusion like that. LIPA has a standard size home, and we certainly could do the math on that, but we didn't do that in preparation for today's meeting. We could do that certainly in preparation for next Tuesday's meeting, if you like.
Well, and I would add that from my perspective anyway, the risk one takes when offering that kind of an analogy is it implies that the energy produced by this facility goes directly into someone's home. And that's not the case.
Right.
The energy goes out to the grid, and LIPA is responsible for distributing that energy depending on the needs of that given moment. So although I don't think people intend it that way, it implies there's a direct nexus between this facility or any solar facility and a particular set of homes, and that's not the case. So it's a little misleading.
A more
I read the article for about 45 seconds and I picked that out. So
excuse me for interrupting you, Lynn. I hear that in advertisements on TV, X number of homes are being supplied with energy. So it is a bit of a marketing strategy that's used. It's a little misleading.
It's an equivalent. It's an equivalency. So
Yeah.
As Frank points out, if you put a hard wire to every house, potentially you could do that. But each house is different. Consumption is different. But it's an equivalency that's setting up this process where we can actually generate revenue to offset some of the costs, like in North Sea, with some of our waste costs, and provide money to consumers. As a town board, we can set up we can help those perhaps less fortunate, or like a STAR program. I mean, provides us a lot more options than simply turning on the lights in an X number of houses, which I think is a false equivalency. So I just, want to make that point that that's 8 megawatts over time going into the system, for which we are benefiting in return with no cost of our own to do that. And I think that's the greater benefit.
Yeah. And just if I could circle back, there are just two things that I wanted to emphasize. And one being that the ongoing operational costs and maintenance of the facility is the responsibility of the developer. So we want to, circle back to that. Lynn, I think you wanted to add something as well.
I just wanted to respond to Tommy John's question in a different way. Janice's department is doing a great job with benchmarking and this whole climate smart communities, clean energy communities program that NYSERDA has. So I think a more appropriate metric, Tommy John, and also taking a leadership position, the town might consider this as well, is to put a number out there that's a good estimate, which we do have, as to what the consumption of electricity is for all the households in the town, and then show how the town is initiating projects to chip away at that. Because if you think about CCA, remember CCA was in one fell swoop, the town would do a competitive bid and move everyone over to renewable energy with one decision. Well, LIPA is blocking us from doing that. So we've done the next best thing. We're using another element of the same program authorized by the state to chip away at what our renewable energy consumption is. I mean, I think that really says a lot about the leadership and the commitment that this town is exercising by demonstrating that we're not giving up. So you won't let us do this. Instead, we're gonna do what we can do, that you've authorized through your tariff and through the state program. And we're gonna do this first project, and I'm sure there are other projects in the pipeline. And then slowly but surely, we'll get at that number. I mean, we could even, publish that on the town website and show the progress.
I think it's important that we present the information in a way that's digestible for for, folks who may not understand kilowatt hours and a lot of the things that we're discussing here. And I certainly get the idea what you're saying about homes, although we do hear that a lot when there's power generation.
Well, and that leads me to emphasize the point that the PSC guidance, if you will, in this implementation of a program like this requires community outreach and community education component, which is part of this whole process. And those are points that are not always easy to understand on the part of the average ratepayer. So it would mean outreach and education on multiple levels and in multiple forums, so that we're sure the community gets a good understanding of the process and how it impacts on them.
So I also wanted to make the point that, we have these energy goals, ambitious goals that we set in the town, carbon net neutrality and energy independence. And, these are all goals that this contributes to. I mean, I think the easiest way to say it is that, every megawatt of power produced in this manner is a megawatt of power not produced by a fossil fuel plant. And, you can look at it in those terms, and that makes a lot more sense. And I think that's the simple way to say it.
So I have a question. We talked about putting these perhaps on not only town property, but town buildings. And I think somebody kind of touched on private properties as well. Well, we have big supermarkets with lots of roof area. We have our schools that have lots of roof area. And I would hope that we'll do outreach to those as well, especially for some of our schools that have very high school taxes. This would be a great offset for their tax bill as well.
And those are all excellent points, Julie. I think a project like this one provides a demonstration site, if you will, and also a demonstration model that would encourage that kind of thing. I can tell you that I'm recently in conversation with the superintendent of schools in Hampton Bays about just the kind of thing that you're talking about. I've talked with the superintendent and the business manager, and I have some follow-up conversations. They are very interested in pursuing this idea for just the reasons that you articulated. So it's getting some traction. And if that one school district can develop a demonstration project, I'm sure it would whet the appetite of some of our other school districts. This is bringing revenue into the town, into the school district, without taxing the residents. It has great value. Especially
in those districts where the taxes are so high.
Yes, like the ones that you and I live in. Any other questions from the board? Any other contributions from Janice or Christine?
No, but just, I think the revenue will go a long way in the town. And I see there's a lot of areas that we can use these on the county executive leave. We put these all over the place. Jay might remember, and that brought in some significant revenue. And it not like if you did it on parking lots, it provides a little bit of shelter. I mean, that's something that residents also have to get used to. So the revenue is unquestionably a positive.
Thank you.
I would just add that we would do this in the Hampton style and way. So we would be sure to make sure it's as aesthetically pleasing as possible.
It would have a pergola look to it.
There'd be a wood pergola. There'd be plants. There'd be flowers.
Right. Well, maybe we need some form-based code to support that.
There's also the benefit too, Julie, I think you'd brought it up, that in areas where we have landfills or brownfield sites or things like that, there are significant remediation costs involved with, particularly with the DEC making those requirements. That can be part of a CD to use those properties in a better way than the way they're being used now. And they are essentially out of sight. No one's talking about clearing, great swaths of trees to put in
Good.
solar arrays and that kind of thing. So the beauty of this to me is that you have these pockets of production that you can put in a bunch of different places. It's not an overwhelming kind of thing. And it also gives you these opportunities to, car charging as an example. You plug your car into the grid essentially to suck fossil fuel produced electricity to charge the battery in your car. And there are programs that can allow charging stations that are solar based that are absolutely independent of being used. Solar arrays are fairly low to the ground. It's not kind of an attractive program and exciting, because in Southampton we have a lot of places for opportunities to do something just like this. Not this first pilot is hopefully the model for how we do the next 10 or 15.
Best place for solar is by the beach parking lots. But
cell production has become incredibly efficient. So arrays are shrinking as a result of that as well. There are products now that produce, shingles that you wouldn't recognize as solar. And there's a lot of things to look at. It's a long list of stuff. But I'm really confident that everybody who's working on this, understands the aesthetics of it and those concerns, and there are technological ways to achieve that.
And there's one technical limitation in that the placement of these solar arrays.
Municipalities that generally deal with the state. How would this program with those school district municipalities, and can we
other municipalities to be part of a CCA village, as an example, would have to have enabling legislation. It's considering it. West Hampton Beach is considering it. So for those municipalities to have a congruent replica of what we're doing here, they would have to have enabling legislation. School districts would reap the benefits because, such as Hampton Bays, they are within the town of Southampton and not in a subset of a municipality like in a village. So they could participate in a CCA CDG program by virtue of the fact that they are within the jurisdiction of the town of Southampton. Does that answer your question, Tommy John?
Yeah, yes, it does.
Okay.
In part. I want to know if fire districts can get some of the revenue and the incorporated villages, and we already addressed the school districts. So this is exciting. I like it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank
Any
you.
other questions? No. Yes, Jay?
No, just saying thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll
Thank you for your attention.
look forward to seeing what kind of responses we get when we actually do the RFP.
We'll keep you posted. Okay. Thank you all.
All right. So let's move on to, and thank you, Lynn, as well. We'll move on to updates. Give me a second here. Trouble with doing this on a computer, things disappear from your screen. All right. So I guess I'll get started here. I guess first on COVID, I continue to watch the numbers. I keep telling everybody that the numbers are around 12 cases a day in the town of Southampton. That hasn't changed. The average is still about 12 cases a day in the town of Southampton. That's a little discouraging. It's not as bad as it had been, but it's been at that level for several months now, fluctuating from about 12 to 20. Higher concentration west of the canal. But, I'm still waiting for that number to really start to visibly drop as people get vaccinated. So I will let you guys know when I see the first sign of that, but it's really been sort of consistently at that level. There still are deaths every day in Suffolk County from from COVID. So it's still here with us. It's still real, and we still need to do everything we can to prevent it. I did have a meeting yesterday with Suffolk County supervisors. Actually, it was more than Suffolk County supervisors. It was Nassau as well. We were discussing the state's legalization of recreational marijuana use and what different areas are doing. You saw that the Shinnecock's, I'm sure you saw this, announced that they will be making marijuana available for sale. They're hoping to do it as early as this summer. I don't know that they can yet, whether they have to wait for the state to promulgate the rules. I'm looking into that, or whether they can go ahead and do it on their own. It's possible. Certainly as we discuss as a town board whether to opt out, we need to be cognizant of the fact that within the town of Southampton, marijuana will be for sale. It's going to be for sale at the reservation. And, we have to, knowing that opting out isn't going to decrease the use in any way, we have to be cognizant of the fact that if there's only one location, there's traffic issues, obviously, but there's also no sales tax revenue, which is projected at, my projection is about $1 million a year in sales tax. Three pennies on a dollar. I've heard different numbers, different estimates of, what it's worth. I think they're estimating for Nassau, Suffolk, I don't have the numbers here, something like $18 million a year. So, that's something we need to consider and think about if we're not actually changing anything, but we're depriving ourselves of revenue. It might work out well for the Shinnecock Reservation, though I don't know that the money that's going to, be realized from the sale of marijuana will be spread throughout the reservation or just to certain vendors who have the shops, like the tobacco, the smoke shops. So maybe that's some information that we can get. They did hold the election, so congratulations to to Chairman Polite, who I believe was reelected this week as chairman, and the other members who were elected there. But we have to make a decision. There's no time crunch. Again, the decisions before us are, if we don't take any action, it will be for sale throughout the town of Southampton, though we'll be able to regulate what zones we want it allowed for, what the requirements are, if we want to say certain distances away from certain things, or only in light industrial zones or highway business zones, whatever we decide. I think we can also do the same, not just for the dispensaries, but any of the lounges that allow its consumption in congregation with other people. We can zone both of those things. And I think we may have some ability to regulate the use similar to the way we regulate cigarette or alcohol use, to say, yes, of course you can use marijuana, but not in a town park or, at a town beach or in a public space or something like that. I think that we could pass local laws to that effect. I am still learning what our powers are and aren't. I suggest that we all educate ourselves as best as possible on this. The state is anticipating a lot of revenue that will go to address some long-term inequalities, criminal justice type of issues, racial issues. So I think it's important that we understand the dynamics here. There are a lot of voices on both sides of this issue. A lot of people who feel very strongly on this issue. I'm sure you're getting emails from both sides. So our decisions are, we do nothing, but we set the zoning code. We opt out as a town board, subject to a permissive referendum. That means the public can gather the signatures and put it on the ballot. those who are in support of legalized marijuana seem to be highly organized, and it is likely that they will get the signatures needed to put it on the ballot. Or we can go directly to the ballot, not require that the signatures be collected. We can put the opt-out question, should the town opt out of the sale of marijuana on the ballot. If we want to keep the cost of that down, then we would put it on the November election rather than a special election. So if you do opt out, you can opt back in. You can do that. If you don't opt out, you cannot opt out at a later date. So once you opt out, once the period for opting out expires, there's no opting out. But if you do opt out and a year later decide, you know, it's not so bad, we want in, we can always opt in at a later date. All right, so that's that. We had a fire at the Hampton Bays transfer station yesterday in a piece of equipment called the tub grinder. It's actually a very expensive piece of equipment. It was believed related to the hydraulic system on the bottom of the machine. It did destroy the tub grinder as far as I understand. I don't know, it's again, whether it can be repaired or whether it's insured, and we can make a claim on it. It did close the facility for.
It's not insured. It's not insured, Jay.
Okay, well, there's the answer to that. So it did close the facility for the rest of the day after the fire yesterday, while the police and fire units investigated and cleared it. It is back open, the transfer station, today for business as of this morning. The Sag Harbor transfer station is being closed tomorrow for the day so that the new attendant booth can be installed. Residents can use the North Sea transfer station if they need to for the day. There was a decision, I can let Jim Burke update you on it. He was very involved with this in terms of the way LIPA properties are taxed. LIPA wanted it limited to a 2%, pilot program, or tax that was limited to 2% cap. There was a multi-town and county litigation, and Jim actually prepared the winning argument. But Jim, do you want to sort of update the board on that decision?
Sure. It was exactly what you're saying, Mr. Supervisor. It was actually LIPA had challenged the county because they were arguing that the properties were improperly put on the assessment rolls, where really all the properties should be subject to a pilot agreement. And so there was a number of years involved, about 7 years involved. So there was substantial refunds involved. The county brought in the town, and working with other outside councils who represent other towns, we crafted an argument that LIPA didn't preserve their right to challenge these all these years because they didn't do. Any property owner would have to. The court finding that represents East Hampton and South Holden, Scott DeSimone with Babylon and Riverhead and myself. So it was a good decision. It's a good decision for the towns, and hopefully we'll work together with the county and LIPA moving forward to address this issue. But saves our town and a lot of towns a substantial amount of money at this time.
Okay.
We're not owed, so right.
The county is owed, right?
Yeah, they make the towns whole each year for the differences between what what we're looking to collect and what I think there's $2 or $3 million at least. As part of that.
Anybody have any questions on that? Congratulations, Jim, on the winning argument there.
Yeah, that's a good one. We work together well with the other outside councils.
So I was on a couple days ago that their plans for this performing art complex. It was a really beautiful building that they designed with an architect. It was quite big, but they also are trying to acquire the building just right next to them where, Yummy Licious is, and there's a restaurant, used to be Superica. Some people call it
Pasa now.
Pasa. Some people call it the Fort Apache building. It's like a horseshoe-shaped building. They are looking to sort of surround themselves by green space and expand Steinbeck Park. There are several Shinnecock Bay water quality meetings this week. We have one more tomorrow. The Dewberry Engineering has been evaluating alternatives, looking at Shinnecock Bay and improving water quality. They've done really tremendous work. We continue to do everything we can to improve the quality of the water in Shinnecock Bay, including supporting agricultural programs and additional methodologies to get the bay back to health. And it's really been an interesting and sort of fascinating exercise. It sort of narrowed things down to 4 possible alternatives for consideration. And one is sort of emerging as the most promising, but expensive. There's no silver bullet here. Before Mother's Day. So I'm happy that that's going to continue. I've also been, I had a conversation with Vince Taldone about the area across from McDonald's. As you guys are probably aware, the Getty Station, former Getty Station owners have been looking to do a 7-Eleven development there. I personally would really like to see it developed according to the RAP. The thing that's holding it up is, the absence of a sewer district, sewage treatment. We do have a property right behind that row. That's in fact, a number of properties the town owns. And this idea has sort of been emerging is, could we sort of form some kind of partnership with some of those businesses, work together and develop, that Main Street section, that new Main Street, the 3-story building with the apartments above and, the cafes and stores and things along the ground level that we've been talking about for years. If we were, to treat it all as one property, then they have the room for development according to the RAP with the sewage treatment, not the sewer district, but then to continue to progress the sewer district, which might, be several years out.
Property owner expressed an interest in doing that?
So far, so good, Tommy John.
Okay.
I think that everybody wants to hear what I have to say. There are some complexities here. The health department is certainly a complexity because they typically don't like the sewer lines crossing property lines unless you have a sewer district. So getting them to view this, that they give us a little bit of time to move forward. And if not, it's unfortunate. I mean, Janice is on the call too. I don't know if Janice wants to say anything on this. I know Janice is working on putting the pieces together for the sewer district, which is a big deal. This could be later on a component in that sewer district. You wouldn't have to build the sewage treatment plant quite so big because the town property, could be part of it. And we can certainly scale it so that if more businesses in this zone wanted to connect, we could add on to that, mini.
I think the idea of the summit and collaborating with the partnership of property owners is a good one. And that's really what the RAP seeks to do. So you're consistent with that. And I would just say, a package plant takes a lot of room and takes a lot of setbacks, and those parcels are quite small and they're not very far from the parcels we've acquired for the STP. So is a viable one. And, it's not very far to pipe over to this area as the first phase. But certainly exploring other options is always a good idea. I just think keeping that, we've kind of collectively
Probably probably.
That area across from McDonald's is a real eyesore. And
It's really got a great idea.
Side, it's an incredible opportunity, and I'm glad that Janice brought up the Peconic Estuary system, as it is still a productive commercial fishing, commercial and residential and recreational, fishing area. It's certainly, I think we can do a good job mitigating nitrogen there, and we should. I had a question about marijuana, and we mentioned the reservations. There are two reservations, the state taxes, the 13%, 3%, and 9%. Is that something you know?
and
Or
so I don't know the, I think the tax rate is somehow would be lower. They might be subject to the state's 9%, but not the 3% town.
okay, and that was just a
But
question
I
that
really-
I had for
I really
Brookhaven and
don't-
Southampton.
I really
Yeah.
don't know the answer to that, Tommy John.
Right.
Sometimes they have their own tax that goes toward the reservations types of programs.
Mhm.
But we can try to get an answer on that.
Right. The Bay Street Theater proposal looks very exciting in Sag Harbor. They've, I think, changed the proposal a little bit. It looks very, very interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, more about that in the future, and what we can do at the park. There's also an easement right there, which I think could be incorporated into the park quite well, too. So I'd like to talk to you about that offline.
Okay. Any other updates? Rick?
Yeah, Jay, so we were talking about the Zoom meetings and the possibility of meeting with the CACs down the road. Our Zoom CAC meetings have actually been very productive. We don't have the idle chit chat, the little conversations going on, as we're trying to conduct business, and we've stayed on topic very well. Kevin McDonald's done an excellent job. He times out at 10 minutes. We move on. We've actually gotten probably more done in the last couple of meetings than we have in any past meetings. So the Zooms for the CAC, I think, will go very well. And, I appreciate that. And the follow-up comments we get from those has been tremendous. So that part of it, I've really enjoyed the Zooms with the CACs. I'd love to get back to town hall. I can't wait. I don't know if Ryan mentioned any kind of spike from the Easter holiday or everybody going on spring break. I think we have to be careful with that. The end of May or the first meeting in June, I think is a perfect time to come back. So whatever works for everybody, we still have to be careful. We've all been vaccinated to some point, but we still definitely have to be careful. I have some elderly friends who thought they were, in the clear. They took their first trip, they went down south, or they went to Easter, out of state, and, they're sick now. So we do have to be a little careful with that. We do have another, the East End cleanup is May 15th and 16th. The registrations have been tremendous so far, so we're really looking forward to that. All I have to do is guarantee great weather, and we should be okay with that one. So that's coming along pretty awesome. And there's a couple things we have to talk out at executive, but I think for now, that's my update.
All I can say is about the Zoom meetings and coming back to town hall. I may have to go back to town hall because I've been running these meetings from my son's bedroom, and he's coming back.
He's coming home.
So I may no longer have a place to do these from. So that's good. I can't wait for him to get back. But what a crazy, freshman year of college, where, he's out in Minneapolis, but it's so hard on these kids, so hard, this pandemic.
Yeah, the whole reason you send them is for that college experience, and half of it is gone.
Yeah,
Can't imagine.
Exactly. They still did almost everything was online, but and they gave him a little dorm room, teeny little dorm room, and they grouped everybody into pods. So he's only met a handful of kids. It's really just a shame. And my daughter is graduating this year from Vassar, and apparently I can't go to graduation because of COVID. They're having something online. I can go, but not in person. It's really, really challenging time for young people. even though they don't get COVID as much as everyone else, but there are young people who do die from COVID too. But it's really been, the impacts to young people psychologically have been immense. So, all right, John, you got anything? Updates? No, Julie?
No, not today, thanks.
All right. All right, Ryan, anything else we need to know? Are you still here?
Nope, all good. I think I'll see you in exec on the topic.
All right. All right, so I will then, we do have executive session, so let me see if I can find what our exec is on. If anybody has it there faster than I get to it. All right, I got it here. Litigation, personnel, contracts, acquisitions. So I will make a motion to end our work session and go into executive session on those items. And we will do this via a different Zoom link. Okay, so you all have been provided that Zoom link. Okay, I'll make that motion.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad.